meeting to order. And if we'll stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call.
Mayor Gibson,
Here.
Vice Mayor Lindlow,
Here.
Commissioner McGee. Here. Commissioner Catanano.
Here.
Commissioner Hyde.
Here.
Solid waste is,
Probably let the record reflect, do we have, that there's actually a quorum present and that one commissioner, Commissioner McGee, is appearing telephonically?
Yes, so that the record show we have a quorum of 4. Commissioner McGee is attending via phone.
Okay.
Commissioner McGee can't vote last night, is not correct?
correct.
Okay.
What was that statement? I didn't hear it.
You can't vote.
Not by phone.
Okay. Right. And as long as a quorum is present, he can vote.
You hear that?
He can?
But I don't believe it.
Oh.
Those were changes that were implemented as part of the COVID.
But we're not in COVID anymore.
But the interpretation coming out of the Attorney General's office said that as long as a physical quorum was present at the meeting, other members could attend and participate telephonically. There was actually a law for COVID that allowed everybody to appear telephonically without a quorum. And then when that law changed, the Attorney General ruled that as long as the quorum was physically present, other members could appear and participate telephonically. Okay, good, thank you.
Thank you, sir. Go ahead, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, go right ahead. You have the floor.
Alright, so the first item B is the solid waste assessment fee. We're looking at increasing that. The current rate is set at $210. It hasn't been increased since 2019. And at a meeting we had in March with James Moore and company, it was pointed out that we were subsidizing the residents to the tune of about $86,000. So in order for us to try to close that gap, I'm proposing that we spread the increase out over 3 to 5 years, just so it's not that great of a hit to the residents. And that would be 10% plus CPI. Currently this year CPI is at 3.24, so it would be a 13.24% increase this year. The next year it would be whatever CPI is plus 10% and so on for the next 3 to 5 years until we can get to that point where we're breaking even. We're not looking to make a profit. We're just looking to make sure that what we're paying to Waste Pro for their services is what we are recouping from the residents who are actually benefiting from the services. The increase this year would yield increased revenue of approximately $31,000. And I'll pause here for the attorney if he wishes to chime in with anything I may have missed.
The only thing I would say is what we're doing right here tonight is setting the maximum, the assessment, and same with the millage rate you'll be considering next. You're setting the maximum that it could be. You will be considering the actual, to set the final assessment and the final millage in September. So what you're setting is a cap right now that can be provided to the property appraiser to be included in the trim notice that goes out to all the residents. You will then have public hearings in September to set that final amount. So just because you vote tonight on either the assessment or the millage, that is not the final vote on this. This is just setting the maximum it could be.
Should we change the wording in this part two summary where it says this increase each year would be 10% plus CPI and up to 10% plus CPI?
Well, I want to use a minimum of 10%, right? But if you wish to make it up to 10%, that's fine. If you're thinking that, you know, at some years
You may not need as
10%.
much, so,
Okay.
yeah, I think that would be it.
You know, most likely, unless you adopt a resolution that says the assessment could go up to a certain dollar amount without future notice, regardless of whether you adopt a 5-year thing, you know, or whatever, you're adopting an assessment for this year.
Right,
So you're still gonna have to consider the assessment and give the notice, just like you're doing this time next year. So we have a plan to implement, I guess there's a plan to do a 10% increase each year to get the assessment so it fully pays for the cost of the sanitary collection. But that decision has to be made each year, and you're not bound by that. What you could do is, in the final resolution, they could, you could say it could go up to this amount in the future without further notice from the city, and then you would still have to vote on it, but it would not have to be mailed out as part of the trim notice each year.
okay.
So I guess the point is, y'all are gonna have to vote on this every year, regardless of what you do tonight and this year.
Okay.
So you're really setting, you know, you're gonna have to consider it every year.
Okay. That answers my question, because I thought we would have to, it would be an automatic thing every year. Okay,
No, I think, that, you know, the only thing you can do is avoid having to send out the mail notice.
yeah,
You still have to adopt it every year, and I think you still have to do the advertised notice. You don't have to send out the mail notice every year, is my understanding.
okay, thank you.
And just as part of the research that we're doing regarding this item, spoke with our consultant that does the property tax review for us, Ernie Peterson, along with an attorney that Mr. Simpson introduced us to, Christopher Rowe, that is knowledgeable on these issues. He has offered his services to us if we desire it. He could, you know, just basically look over what we're doing, or if we want him to take the lead on it, just so, you know, we make sure we're doing it correctly. It's up to us. Well, like I said, he's made his services available to us. You have that in the packet. I think we probably would need him just, at the very least, to look over what we're doing, to make sure it's being done correctly, since this is the first time that I believe, well, for myself, this is the first time I'm doing it. I'm not sure about the rest of the council, but I would want to make sure that we're doing it correctly so that next year we're not having any issues.
Yeah, no, I think that's true. I think that's prudent.
Am I right, or?
Go ahead, Joe.
So, we're not, in 2025, we're gonna be collecting the correct amount, right? Or am I missing something here?
In 2025, we won't be collecting the correct amount.
So we'll continue for the next 5 years to subsidize the trash pickup? Is that what I'm getting here?
Yes,
Wow.
yes. I wanted to not have such a big hit on the residents, because we'd basically be raising it from 210 to about 320.
So over the next 5 years, you know, because right now, from what I understand, we have a hole of 86,000 times 2, right?
What do you mean times 2?
Because it was 23 and 24, where we weren't collecting the right amount of That was what
Okay.
Zach said in the meeting.
Yes,
you know.
yes.
So it's really $180-something thousand or 90.
160 something. Yeah.
So if we let that go on,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah,
180
sorry.
or 86 times 2,
Yeah.
assuming that everything else stayed the same, which it
Yes.
probably didn't, but I'm within, say, like a couple of thousand, I'd say.
Mm-hmm.
And so if we go 5 more years, at what point will we hit the break-even point? Where we got all of our money back and now the trash collection numbers are working perfectly? When would that happen?
I think we're looking at recovering the monies from the past years. We're just looking at getting to that point where we're, in that particular year, you're paying for what, well, you're receiving from the residents what we're paying to Waste Pro. That's how I was looking at it. But if you want to look at it to go and recoup from the previous years, I'd have to crunch the numbers and see what that would be.
So we essentially would, so we would be in the hole for 190,000, and then in 2025, we would be in the hole for another certain amount. I don't even know what that is, right? Even though we collected the 10 plus 3% or CPI, then the next year, we would have more to add to that deficit. Because, so it's, the hole's gonna keep getting bigger, and I'm just using the term hole for lack
Yeah.
of a better word, right? But the amount that we're in arrears. So do we have like a target of when we're gonna cross that graph, where we're gonna break even and actually have everything running correctly, or?
Well, like I said, I wasn't looking at going back to recover from previous years. I was just trying to get to that point where when, say in 2027, we're actually receiving from the residents the same amount that we are paying to Waste Pro. But if you want to go back to those previous years and see how we can recoup those monies from those years, I can do that and let you know.
Well, it was go ahead, Mayor.
I have a question. What's the dollar figure that we should be charging right now? Total dollars.
That's what I'm asking too.
Right now, it's about $320.
Okay, $320. That's $110 more than what we're collecting right now.
Yes.
And I understand where Joe's going with this is, we're just not catching up. Because every year we just add 10%, but every year the deficit keeps growing. When I first saw this, my knee-jerk reaction was, okay, let's increase it to exactly the amount we need per month.
Right.
Or even 10% more to catch
To
up.
recoup.
To get the old
Right,
money
to
back.
go
I mean, that's
right.
the way I'm looking at this, and I could be way off base. Do I want to swallow another $120?
One thing I would say is, the assessment is to recover the cost of providing the service. The city apparently knowingly or unknowingly, but decisions were made that part of the cost of providing the annual service is subsidized by the city, other than collecting it through the assessment. Why that decision was made, how that decision was made, I have no idea. I would have a question of whether or not we could collect an assessment for retroactive services that weren't paid. Because that's what you're in essence talking. There's two ways to look at it, and these assessments are looked on as on an annual basis. You're looking at it collectively, we've been subsidizing this cost, and if we wanted to go back and recoup the subsidy, it may be a lot more than that because y'all went back 2 years.
Yeah, exactly.
Sure, y'all may have been subsidizing part of this collection for the past 20 or 30, 40 years. I don't know. But what Jerome was trying to do is say, how do we get to the point that we are not subsidizing at all prospectively? For that current year, we're not subsidizing it. It would really be a question for Chris Rowe is, can we use an assessment to collect previous years where the city decided to subsidize the cost? And you want to recoup what you subsidized in previous years. that's a different question. But I think what we have here is trying to get the city to where it's not subsidizing at all. And you could do that in one swoop, just say, let's increase it $110 and we won't be subsidizing any further this year. I think Jerome was proposing to soften the blow and spread that increase out over a period of time. But you're gonna have rate increases that are going to use part of that increase. You know, it's gonna have to be addressed each year because the cost of service goes up each year for the contractor. So you're gonna have an adjustment for the cost of, you know, the COLA adjustment, plus then you're gonna have to add an additional 10% on top of that to try to get, it's gonna have to be recalculated every year.
Is it correct to think that, like in 2025, we're gonna be, the city's gonna be paying for people's trash pickup again? Is that what Scott just said? And then the year after that too?
That's what he's saying.
So, yeah, that's,
I mean, if you don't
That seems
increase the
like
assessment
crazy
to
to
the
me.
full cost of the service, then the city will be subsidizing each year until you actually get to the point where you're passing that full cost on annually. What Jerome is proposing is to reduce the amount of that subsidy each year so it's phased in over time.
so it would be the 86,000 minus the 30-something that Jerome said we would get from the 10% plus the CPI?
Could be next year we're subsidizing, y'all are subsidizing 50,000.
Mm-hmm.
The next year you're subsidizing 20,000. The year after that you're not subsidizing anymore. And I'm not looking at the numbers, so I'm just giving hypotheticals.
And the reason why, oh,
Please. Okay. Nadia? Well, that's okay. He raised his hand.
Ricky Taylor, 183 East Ariel. Didn't we hire someone to audit the 86,000 to see if that was an actual number?
that's not what he was hired for. He was hired to go over the tax rolls,
Okay,
not do an audit, but just look at the tax rolls and figure out who's paying what and.
right.
And who
but to
was it?
verify
Right.
that there was an actual pickup for everyone that they were charging us for. Because there are locations throughout that they might have been picking up trash, but they weren't taxed on it. But they click that clicker each time they stopped at that location and picked up trash, and boom, you're getting hit with a bill for picking up trash that we didn't collect tax on.
So just to clarify that, that's, in speaking with the Waste Pro management about how they do their pickups, it's based on the house count that we or the property appraiser provides to them. It's not what the driver or whoever is driving the truck, they don't keep track of it. So even if they pick up from someone who's, shouldn't be picked up, we don't get charged for it. They go by the number that we provide to them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I know there was question at one time on new homes that wasn't CO'd yet, but they were picking up trash and whatnot,
Right.
and whether or not they were paying for it.
That's something that we're working on addressing right now.
Okay, thank you.
I think was the person that we hired to look this over, were they actually able to identify a deficiency or, a cause for this?
No, well, they didn't look at this. They were, like you said, they were looking at making sure that we have an accurate number, or houses that are supposed to be picked up were actually on the road to be picked up.
And what was his findings?
We actually had 12 more than we should have.
So it's worse than it.
Yes.
So we don't know how or why this is happening, we just know that,
For whatever reason, when numbers are put in place by the property appraiser, I don't know how they do it. But this person, Ernie, actually went out and physically checked
The
on
12,
those.
the 12 new units above what we currently have may be the Lagoon Mist houses that have come online, because they're got pickup, and it's usually a year behind when the taxes are actually collected, right? So that's why those 12 may be on there that aren't
I think he said that we
They
were charging
we were
12
charging
more.
12 more than we should have.
And we should have been,
Okay,
yeah.
I understand.
But we're, like I said, when Ricky was at the podium, we're actually looking at charging people when they do their CO, so that they're not getting that
Right,
one
I
year
remember we were talking about
of
that.
That
free
lag.
pickup. Yeah.
So the only moving parts that are left would be the price that we put on the tax rolls for people to say, this is how much we're gonna charge you, that it was too low. Is that, what else could be left, right?
Yeah, that, nothing else I can think of.
Right.
There's one more person for public comment, Charlie Dean.
Thank you, Charlie.
He didn't even do anything yet.
I'm thanking him anyway.
He
In
will.
advance, thank you in advance.
We know Charlie.
Charlie Dean, 157 East Halifax. Do we collect, I know we collect a impact fee for new houses. We don't collect the impact fee? Why not?
Volusia County gets it, $12,000
We,
bucks.
we don't get any?
Nope.
Because what I see happening is an impact fee, okay? I come in and I build a house in January. They pick up my trash all year long. I ain't paid nothing, okay? The city's getting stuck with that money. Why do these other cities get an impact fee? They charge an impact fee, they get money in their hands. They need to be paying the same thing I'm paying, the people that come in here, okay? People come in here and build a house, they need to be paid, okay, from the day one. I don't need to be subsidizing them, and that's what I'm doing,
That's what we're all doing.
okay? And I'm meaning all of us, but I'm subsidizing new residents that's not paying for their trash pickup. I have no problem paying for what I do, okay? But I do have a problem paying for what other people does. Okay, and y'all heard me up here holler this a long time. If I owe $350 a year for trash, tell me what I owe, I'll pay it. I'm not gonna pay you for 2 years ago when the city had their head stuck up their rectum and didn't pick up on it. That's the city's fault, not Charlie Dean, not John Taylor, not somebody else's fault. That's the city's fault. So going back to collect for 2 years ago up till now is asinine. Now, if you want to charge me this year, put it on my taxes and I'll pay you. Okay? I have no problem doing that. So, y'all need to think of what you're doing. Don't go back and charge the city for something that the commissioners, the administrators were negligent in doing.
I agree. I don't think.
That's on y'all.
I don't think we should be doing.
That's on y'all. If you want to raise it from this point forward, have at it.
Which is
Okay?
what we ought to
But
do.
don't go back and try to recharge me for something that you should have told me 2 years ago. Oh, by the way, Charlie, you owe X number of dollars more for your trash pickup. I'll be glad to pay you, but I'm not gonna back up and pay you. If you don't tell me, you're not getting the money, okay? I'm just telling you.
Thank you, Charlie.
We need to turn around and look at this the smart way, and not just because y'all forgot what y'all was doing.
Is there any ideas on how we could do like what Charlie just said, but still somehow offer some kind of a relief to people that really can't afford it?
You're gonna have to do it for everybody.
Assessment has to be uniform.
Oh,
Yeah,
I
it
got
has
you.
to be everybody.
And I don't think we should be subsidizing trash pickup. I think everybody should pay what they owe for that.
Like from
particular
right
time.
now
Right,
on, right?
right.
Not the,
Right now on.
yeah, I agree with that. I was just thinking about somebody that, cause $100 and something a year, I don't know how that's gonna impact the poorest people in Oak Hill.
Yeah.
Well, you got some of these old ladies that want to drop trash bag out. Okay, and they're paying the same thing for a guy that puts out 5 trash cans.
Hello.
Yeah. But there's no way to prorate that.
And to some degree, I think that's what Jerome was proposing, that we phase this increase out over a couple of years to let people absorb it, you know, to be able to adjust to it slowly. And the issue about when people come online, you know, get their CO and it's after the property appraiser does their tax review, we're addressing that issue, coming up with an ordinance to address that issue. Lake Ellen's doing the same thing. But the only cities that have to worry about that are cities who collect their sanitation collection on the tax bill. Not every city does that. A lot of cities put that on their utility bill every month. And so it's paid monthly as opposed to a lump sum amount on the tax bill. So we don't have to levy an assessment. We don't have to collect it on the tax bill. We could start billing people monthly for the garbage collection, and then they could pay it out over a 12-month period of time. Every month they just pay it, as opposed to paying it up front. Now with the taxes, when it's on the tax bill, this isn't a tax, it's an assessment, it's just collected on the tax bill. But when people pay early, when they pay, you know, you can pay your taxes in November, you get a 4% discount. You get that same discount off of the assessment too, if you pay it early. So whatever discount you get on your taxes for paying early, you get the same discount on the assessment. If we switched and charged this and collected it as a utility fee, and we sent out monthly, on a monthly statement, I don't know if we send out any monthly statements to property owners, but like, this is also only for residential. Commercial are billed monthly. They don't pay this on the tax bill. This is only for residential property owners. But just saying, there's more than one way to collect your sanitation charge.
Then you have to hire somebody to send out bills.
Right,
to
somebody
collect it.
extra.
You got another cost to the city where you don't have that cost now.
And if it's
Then that's
uniform,
true, but right
you got
now,
all
we
you
send
do
the bill
on
out
something.
monthly, and I think the contractor does that. Now, I'm sure we compensate the contractor through that process, but, and I'm just saying there's more than one way to collect it. And we pay the property appraiser to put it on the bill, and then we give people a discount if they pay taxes early. So it's costing us money to use the property appraiser. Don't think it's free. We pay the property appraiser.
I bet you it's cheaper than if you hired a company to send out a bill every month.
It may very well be. I have no idea. I didn't say don't assume it's free just because we're using the property appraiser, because it's not.
Scott, do you think that that pay early discount thing could be part of the reason why we have this deficit?
That would amount to 5%. I don't know what percentage of the people in Lake Helen pay early to take advantage of that.
Yeah.
So that is probably something Ernie could let us know, but that could contribute at least to a 5% cost of it.
Thank you.
Bet you don't have 3%.
Yeah, if they pay, like, if they pay in December, it's 4%, January, 3%. You know, there's the percentage goes down closer you get to the due date of the tax bill.
But if they pay quarterly, it might be easier on them.
I'm in favor of $320. I'll kick the can down the road and don't let it accumulate anymore.
Yeah, because it's just gonna, I think I agree with what Scott was saying, was the gap is going to get
I
wider
agree with that.
because,
I would like to just remind you what I said earlier. You're not setting it today. What you're doing is you're setting the maximum it could be.
Okay?
So if this commission is saying, we would really like to consider doing this in one lump sum, get it all caught up today, and then let the notices go out and let the property owners know what you're going to do, and then you'll hear from them. and then you can make your final decision in September.
Let's do it.
Because you can always go up.
After we dodge the pitchforks and
We can go down, but we can't go up.
Rocks in the parking lot.
Yeah,
I agree with Mayor Gibson, though.
I think so.
Ricky
Yeah,
Taylor,
and we
East
may as
Ariel.
well
Me
do
too.
Yes, sir.
What about all the new homes that come in? Are they gonna be paying that extra too on their taxes?
That's what he was just talking about,
Yes.
is that's,
So they're
we're
gonna
working
pay
on an
some of the
ordinance to make
deficit
them
that
pay up
was for the
front
past
for
2
the
years?
first year.
Yes.
You know, it'll be prorated.
They will, obviously, it will be on their taxes, you know, depending on when you get your CO. You know, your tax bill is based on the condition of the property on January 1st. So people who are CO'd after that, not only are they not paying their assessments, you know, they're not paying property taxes based on the CO fair market value of the property for the whole year. They're basing it on raw land because that's what it was on January 1st. So there was at one time, some cities tried to deal with that thing with the property taxes. They said, we need to have an interim tax levy when people get their COs later. And that was struck down by the courts because it's a tax, and we can only tax based on the way the law is written, and the law is written to do it one way. But the assessment is not a tax. So we can do an interim assessment when you come in and get your CO. Hey, you've got 6 months left of the year, you're gonna have 6 months of garbage, you gotta pay 6 months of what, or 1/2 of what the total assessment was. And we can pick up that.
Yeah.
That seems fair. I mean,
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, I think we should go up for the whole $310 or $20, whatever the amount is.
Scott, I think you
320.
answered a question several years ago about impact fees. How come the city can't have impact fees?
Oh, the city can have impact fees, but a lot of cities do have impact fees. But you need to go in, and I think that's probably one of the first times I introduced y'all to Chris Rowe, because he does impact fees, utility fees, assessments, things like that. You have to have a study done to justify the fee. Because impact fees are not to take over and start providing for maintenance or repair of what's here today. It's designed to provide for the cost of expanding our services to accommodate new development. So you have to have a study done, and you know, if you're going to do it, you got to do it right. Have a study done and see what is the impact of a new subdivision on, for instance, the city's water system. Well, you don't have one. You know, that was one of the issues years ago. We didn't have water and sewer. So there was no impact on the city's water and sewer system. But as we start getting into having a water and sewer system, I think we probably ought to evaluate whether or not we should address impact fees. People do parks impact fees. I've seen police and fire impact fees. But here, we don't have a fire department. We're part of the fire district with the county. With the police, we don't have a police department. We contract with the county. So a lot of the things that are typically paid with impact fees, we don't provide those services. So I think it would be hard for us to levy impact fees if we don't provide the service.
Yeah. The same thing happened when I worked for,
I've seen a garbage impact fee,
Yeah.
sanitation impact fee.
the same thing happened when I was with Osceola County, because they had collected impact fees for fire service, is they're very limited on what you can actually use that money for. You can only use it for brand-new equipment, brand-new stations. You cannot use it to subsidize any equipment that's expired or old. You can't use it to supply personnel or benefits. It can only be used for very specific things, so impact fees aren't what everybody thinks they are.
Say if you don't spend it within a certain period of time,
Then
you
it
gotta
goes
give it
back, right.
So,
I believe that when I started here, I talked about a fee, not necessarily an impact fee, but like a stormwater
assessment.
assessment fee. And that's something I discussed with Chris Rowe about looking into. So that's something that I believe we should look at.
Is an impact fee different than an assessment?
Yes.
Okay,
Impact fees are only for new construction.
gotcha.
Your assessment can go into not only expanding, new construction, but also maintaining and improving what you currently have.
Right.
Which is
And
better.
Chris Rowe did the stormwater assessment for Lake Helen. Him and a consultant worked on that. And what happened, I don't want to take too much of y'all's time, but last year, or really the year before, Lake Helen was proposing a very large stormwater assessment fee. And no one ever challenged their stormwater assessment because it was so small. But they were charged, proposing a very large increase. It actually caused some issues with the property appraiser, but it also caused a lot of pushback from the residents. And so I told, both the administrator and the commission, I said, if you're going to propose a large assessment, an increase in your stormwater fee assessment, then I would recommend hiring a consultant that will give you the documentation and the research that you need to support that large increase. Because it's not like a sanitation fee, because all we do is we look at the contract and say, this is how much we're paying, and we're just, we're just divvying it up amongst the users of our sanitation contract. When you start doing stormwater, you have to look at what are your future projects, what are the projected costs of those projects, when will those projects occur, and what's the best way to fund those. So it takes a little bit more of a study and an analysis to do that. So that's why I probably recommended to Jerome, I said you at least ought to talk to Chris Rowe, because I know that's what he does. I'm not saying you have to use them, but Lake Helen went out for RFPs, and they were several years ago, and they were the most cost-effective firms. Because a lot of times when you go out to get attorneys and consultants to do this type of work, they want to include in part of this a validation hearing, which, sometimes what you do is you'll take these assessments and then you pledge the revenue from these assessments to repay loans. So you go out and you borrow money and you pledge these new assessments to repay those loans. So now you have a pool of money which you can go in and do all these stormwater improvements for. And, if what they wanted, a lot of these firms, at least for the last time I went through the RFP process, wanted to go through that hearing process and go ahead and get the bonds valid, or the assessment validated by the court today. And typically it occurs in what's called bond validation hearings. But there would be no debt or bond being issued, but there would still be a validation process, go through the court process, have it validated. So obviously, a lot of these attorneys were charging a lot more, it's a lump sum fee, and it was a lot more money than what Chris Rowe's firm was charging, because they weren't proposing they could do the validation, but they were saying they didn't have to, so.
I got a question. Scott, this is Charlie D. And we was talking about impact fees. Now, we contract with the county for our police services, for their law protection. Impact fee, we could use that because every year it goes up, okay? Because the city's growing or more area, so forth and so on. So couldn't the impact fee be placed on that and for, law enforcement and protective services?
I don't know the answer to that because off the top of my head. First, when you go to fund things by an assessment, there's only certain things that can actually be funded by assessment. Some things can, and some of it doesn't make a lot of sense. For instance, Lake Helen has a fire assessment. We got out of the county's fire district for millage reasons, and we created a fire assessment. We contracted with the county fire department to provide for us those services. When we did the assessment, we could pay for fire service because it benefits the property. We could not fund the cost of EMS services with an assessment. And I'm pretty sure police services you cannot charge an assessment for police services. And I don't know, you can charge a user fee for it, because I don't know if y'all remember, one of the West Side cities, maybe it's Deltona, they wanted to charge, and it made sense, they wanted to charge a fee for somebody got in a car accident that wasn't a resident. You didn't live there, we're gonna charge you a fee for our law enforcement response, our fire response. Pretty sure that was stricken
I like that.
by the courts. It made sense though. I mean, it made a lot of sense to me. So when you get into impact fees, we're not buying the cars, the sheriff's vehicles. We're not expanding the sheriff's facilities. The county's doing that. And
But,
they're passing that on to us as part of our monthly fee, or annual fee. And I'm not sure that could be funded by an impact fee, Charlie. I'm
Well-
not saying no, but that would have to be researched.
okay, and I'll understand what you're saying, but in return, what are we paying the county for? Are we just paying them for bodies?
No, we're paying them for all that stuff.
We're paying them
And
for
maybe-
cars, we're
And
paying
maybe
them for.
they could collect an impact fee from development to help fund the sheriff's. If they have a police impact fee, they could collect it because they're buying the vehicles, they're buying the land to expand their, departments and facilities for this new development throughout the county. But then they're turning around and they're charging us a fee. I just don't know that we
Well-
can charge an impact fee, because I know we couldn't pass the whole, I wouldn't think we could pass the whole fee
No.
off on an impact fee. It would have to be somehow calculated on how much of the fee being levied by the sheriff is associated with the cost of expanding sheriff patrols in Oak Hill due to new construction.
Well, but we pay county taxes too. So
Yeah.
what you're telling me is we pay county taxes for the sheriff's department, but yet we hire them at $700,000 a year to give us our law enforcement in the city. So what are we doing? I mean, we're paying them twice for their services.
Well,
Is what
not
we're
really,
doing.
because they would not provide the same level of service that you are receiving under the contract if you didn't have the contract with them.
And I understand, that's the reason I'm saying, why can't we charge for part of that service that we're getting? It only makes
But
sense.
you can't use an impact fee just to pay for the service. It has to be, an impact fee has to be used to pay for the increased cost of providing a service due to the development. Not the cost of providing service, basic service.
Okay,
So let's say we had our own police department and we were just going to, we could not use a police impact fee to pay for any officers. We could not use a police impact fee to replace the current, patrol staff. We would have to have, potentially the impact fee could be used if we needed to buy more cars, police cars, not replace what we have.
but
buy
don't you
more
think
cars.
that's what the sheriff's doing with some of ours, is buying new cars, and buying new weapons, and buying new uniforms?
That's all, it's not, but it's more cars, not new cars.
Well, more cars.
Yeah, more cars, but how the sheriff's had it, you would have to tie how much of that fee if you could do it, you would have to say how much of that fee, the contract fee that the county is charging us, the sheriff is charging us, is related to expanded services due to development.
Okay,
And here's another. Say we had a water system, and we collected a water impact fee, a very common thing cities do. If we had a 12-inch line, and we went and replaced it with a 12-inch line, a new 12-inch line, we could not use impact fees to pay for that.
so you have to
If
put in
we
14.
took the 12-inch line and replaced it with a 16-inch line to increase the capacity, we could pay for that increased cost of the additional size of the line with the impact fees.
I don't think
So-
his horse is gonna get up, so we don't need to shoot him again.
Oh, we
Okay,
really
we're
got
gonna put a
sidetracked.
maximum on it?
No, that's okay.
I apologize. But so really, what I think the question before y'all, and you sort of kind of answered it, is where do you want to set the maximum cap that you may set this assessment at? And based on the conversation I heard, sounds like y'all would like to set the maximum cap at the assessment level that would be necessary to
Break
break even
Yes.
this year.
Right,
I agree.
right.
That's right.
So I think that,
Might I suggest that we set it a little higher, just so I have,
A
just so
little
I can
cushion?
go back and check my numbers to make sure I'm,
350.
there you go.
okay, a maximum
We
of
can say
350.
that, yeah,
Well, that's the maximum,
Yeah.
but we can go lower, we just can't go
Can't go
higher.
higher.
right.
Right,
And I will also just let you know that 2 years ago, when Lake Helen proposed these large increases in their assessment, they had a concern putting it on the tax bill. I don't think they were correct, but just, I don't know what kind of percentage increase you're looking at if you go to the full amount. And I'm trying to remember what the property appraiser said, but I don't know if it's 100% increase. There's a threshold where they wanted some additional notices. So just don't be surprised if you get some pushback from the property appraiser and it has to possibly be adjusted downward to satisfy the property appraiser. Just, we can start there, but Lake Helen ran into an issue 2 years ago.
So the property.
The
Go ahead.
property appraiser doesn't mind reappraising your property
yeah,
and charging the taxes on that.
no, that's for sure.
So
Just,
why would they be,
I'm just telling you what happened in Lake Helen. And I met with the property appraiser and his staff, and I asked him, I said, what exactly did Lake Helen do wrong? And that we're not able to do this. And all I kind of got was, look, we just want to know as far in advance as possible if you're going to have a very large increase. So, I would say, if whatever you approve, Jerome, get it over there to him tomorrow, and we'll see what comes back.
okay?
Okay,
So the fear here is that the property appraiser won't let us charge what we need to recoup the trash services?
Yeah, I don't think that's gonna fly,
I don't think that'll fly.
no.
Okay.
We'll
Unless,
see.
unless the property appraiser wants to make up the difference, then he can certainly do that. Yeah. Get your pickup trucks and start loading the garbage up. Do you need a motion?
Yes, sir.
I'll make a motion that we set the maximum level for the new waste collection fee of up to $350.
second.
We have a motion and a second. Discussion from the commissioners?
Sooner we do it, the better.
Call for a vote.
Mayor Gibson,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Lindlau,
Yes.
Commissioner McGee,
Yes.
Commissioner Catagano,
Yes.
Commissioner Hyde.
Yes,
Motion passes unanimously. All right, let's move on to preliminary millage rate.
So this too is similar to this action that we just took with the solid waste. We can set it to the maximum that you would believe you would want to set it to. You're not setting it in stone, this is your tentative. The current millage rate is 5.682. When James Moore was here and we talked about it, they were working with that same millage rate for this coming year of 5.682, using the current values provided by the property appraiser. That would actually yield an increase in revenue for the city of around $73,000. If we wanted to go back to the rollback rate, it would be a millage rate of 5.325 to receive the same amount of revenue that we're receiving this fiscal year. I was suggesting keeping the millage at its current rate, the 5.682, just to receive that additional 73,000 in revenue. This is also something that we need to make the property appraiser aware of by August 2nd, so that they have it for their true notices. And then again, we'd have to have future hearings to actually adopt it.
Right.
And again, Mr. Attorney, if you want to chime in if I missed anything.
No, you covered it.
Well, I'll make the motion that we go ahead and set the millage rate, preliminary millage rate at 5.682 for the next fiscal year.
I'll second it.
I think I would state again the percentage by which that is the increase over the rollback rate.
Over the rollback rate of 5.325%.
What is the percentage increase over the rollback rate?
That was a 12 sorry.
It's 6.7% higher than the rollback.
Yes.
Okay. So by going to that millage rate, you are having a increase over the rollback of 6.7%?
Yes.
Right.
Correct.
Okay. I think I just wanted to have that publicly stated, so there's no question.
Okay. Do we have a motion and a second? Discussion?
I just have a question.
You have the floor.
Is the preliminary millage rate the same as the preferred? Because I'm thinking about that Form 422, you know how they had the rollback and then the preferred millage rate? So this is like a new term for me I haven't seen before, the preliminary.
What do they use this for?
The preliminary millage rate is the amount that is set so that it goes in the trim notice by the property appraiser, and more or less it's the maximum millage rate that the local government can levy. Technically, you can go above that, but it's very difficult to do that. But you can always do a lower millage rate. And I'm not sure if that answers your question, what you're asking there, Joe.
It sounds like it's almost exactly the same, because on the 422 form, you know, they have a preferred, and it's the same, you know, it's that higher number. And and of course the rollback rate, they call it the same thing. So I don't see any difference other than the language.
Joe?
Yeah,
Joe,
I'm not too familiar with that form.
millage rate, the millage rate's the same, but because the property tax value went up, the city's getting more revenue. And that's the 6.7% is the increase in revenue, not the increase in millage.
Yeah, I get that. I was just my question was more related to the term preliminary versus a preferred. And if there was a difference, and it doesn't really seem
sound
to
like
be
there
a
is.
difference.
I don't think so.
But thank you there, Steve.
Oh, okay, I misunderstood you.
So I think we should shoot for the higher, somebody has.
Public comment, sir.
Charlie?
Of course.
Mr. Dean?
Charlie Dean, 157 East Talladega.
You said you'd pay, so, you know.
Okay. Oak Hill's already got the highest millage rate of any city in Volusia County.
Have you checked lately?
Yeah, I have.
No, they're not.
Well, when did it change?
It changed several years ago.
Okay. I stand corrected.
Hold on. Edgewater is fixing to hit people.
Yo, I know Edgewater's fixing it.
Okay.
Okay, but, you know, what I've seen in the last year here in the city, we hired a new city administrator, and we went from 55,000 to 90,000. Okay, we increased our expenditures just in that to $35,000. Okay, along with that, we hired this new city administrator with the thought process that they was going to be able to handle our finances. We went and hired our city administrator, come out and went and hired a company to do our budget and our finances expenditures at $30,000 more a year. Okay? Now, we're spending all this money. I thought Mr. Adams was the one that was gonna be able to take care of all this stuff. I thought his level of expertise that we hired allowed him to do this. But that's not happening. We're spending money on stuff the administrator should be handling for this city. We're going out and contracting other individuals or other companies to take care of this stuff. Y'all need to look at what we're spending now just to operate City Hall. It's definitely gone up in the last year, probably somewhere in the neighborhood of about $150,000 from what it was last year. Well, I know last year all of us wasn't happy. Well, there are a lot of people not happy this year too. Okay? I don't mind paying somebody to take care of what we hired people to take care of. But if they're not the ones doing that job and gotta go hire somebody else to do their job, then somebody's pay needs to be cut. That's my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you, Charlie. All right, any further discussion? Call for the vote?
Mayor Gibson,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Lindlau,
Yes.
Commissioner McGee,
Yes.
Commissioner Catigano,
Yes.
Commissioner Hyde.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously. The rate is gonna be 5.682.
That's the maximum potential rate. That's definitely
Yes.
not what the rate will be.
Yeah.
For sure. You'll set that in September.
The max rate.
Yep. And Jerome, you'll get both these two documents over to the property appraiser's office first thing.
Yes.
Did the commission want to retain Chris Rowe to assist the city doing their assessments this year? I know it was briefly discussed, or do you want to consider it and get back to Jerome?
Think we'll get back.
Do we still need to? I thought we fixed that. Like,
Well, we approved the assessment, and I know it seemed like people talked positively about it. I just want to make sure if that was the direction given to Chris, he can start contacting Chris Rowe directly.
Is using his services to make sure that we're following all the right procedures, getting the documents sent out in the way that should be, and in the time frame that they need to be, so that we're doing it correctly to
Right.
meet all the
And-
requirements.
And potentially responding to the property appraiser if we get pushback.
and the notice now would be the $100 and something that were, right? The new notices that are going out, as opposed to when we first walked in here and we were gonna do that percentage or
Yeah.
thing.
Right, it's all changed.
Gotcha, but we're looking for guidance on how to send the notice itself, not
Yes, and
what the
all the-
amount is or anything
No,
like
not the
that.
amount, just the
Yeah.
noticing and the timing for, advertising when you have meetings.
And so,
or-
from your point of view, nothing is different, like, this, all the mechanics are still the same, it's just,
Yeah.
so you feel like you have that need to use this guy? Because if you do, I mean, I'm not opposed to that, but we want to make sure we get it right, you know?
That's the reason why I feel I need to use him, just to make sure I get it right, because we haven't done this before. So I want to make sure it's done correctly.
We
And
didn't
just if I
hire
can
you to
help
do
you,
the auditing.
working on the assessments, the millage, that's not something I normally get involved in with any of the cities I represent. And the assessment, because we're using the non-ad valorem collection method to put the assessment on the tax bill, if you don't do it right, then you could have a problem with your assessment and you don't want to have to give money back. So I think what really needs to occur is this assessment ordinance was adopted long before I ever got to Oak Hill. I don't know when it was adopted, but the language in our code. And what I've talked to Jerome about is I think it would be good to have Chris oversee what we're doing here, making sure the notices are done correctly, because just so y'all know, there is a notice that has to go out to all the property owners when you do an increase in an assessment. The property appraiser recently changed the trim notice to meet the notice requirements under state law for the assessment notice. And we may be the only county in the state where the property appraiser allows us to use the trim notice and has modified the trim notice to satisfy state law. Like in Seminole County, I live in Seminole County, I recently received an assessment notice of an increase for my garbage collection. And they sent it to me by mail. It's totally separate. It's not on the trim notice. Volusia County is very unique in that way, and I just want to make sure the first time we go through this with Jerome that we are doing it right. And we have someone who specializes in this to bless what we're doing. It was a recommendation that I made to Jerome, and he brought it to y'all, and I'm glad y'all think it's a good idea, but I just want to make sure it's done right the first time. Because if you don't do it right, it can create some significant financial issues. There was a court case where the law says for a new assessment, you have to do this direct mailing notice to all the property owners. So this one city or county kept increasing an existing assessment, but was never notifying the public. And the court ruled that an increased assessment is the same as a new assessment. It's new for that amount. And because they didn't give the notice properly, they made that city or county pay back millions of dollars that was collected for over a long, I think a 5-year period of time or something like that. So that's one of those things that keep people up at night. I just want to make sure that for sure, at least the first time, because once we get it set the first time, then we have forms that the finance department and Jerome can use going forward. But I just want to make sure it's done right this time. So,
Jerome, is this in the agenda pack where the guy that charges $3.35 an hour, is that the? $3.25, yes. 3 something, yeah, okay. Speak quickly.
You need a motion?
Yeah.
Motion to adjourn?
We're in the wrong profession.
Yeah, we know that.
We have a motion to adjourn, second.
Second.
Meeting adjourned. Charlie?
y'all have a good night.